Jan Smithers once made millions of viewers believe that life on television could be gentle, graceful, and orderly, until the day she walked away without a word of goodbye. There was no accident, no scandal, no collapse in front of the camera, just a quiet decision to step away from Hollywood while everything was still in motion. A woman standing exactly where others spend a lifetime trying to reach, chose to disappear. She had appeared with an almost perfect image, intelligent, reserved, distant enough to avoid noise, yet close enough for audiences to believe they understood her. But behind that control was a different rhythm of life, relationships more complicated than they seemed, a marriage constantly under the watchful glare of the press, and choices that, each time they were made, required her to leave a part of herself behind. Jan Smithers never told her story. No memoir, no retrospective interviews, no attempt to return and capitalize on public memory. And it is precisely that silence that makes everything clearer in another way. That something must have happened that was significant enough for her to accept trading away fame to preserve what remained of her life. She did not disappear because of failure. She left while she still could have stayed. So what was powerful enough to make a woman once seen by all of America decide she no longer wanted to be seen at all? Karen Jan Smithers was born on July 3, 1949, in North Hollywood, in an environment that carried no signs of stage or spotlight. Her family belonged to the middle class, where life was maintained in stability rather than opened up to major upheavals. Her father was a lawyer, a profession tied to order and reason. Her mother stayed at home, maintaining a quiet and steady family structure. Smithers grew up with her 3 sisters in Woodland Hills, a suburb close enough to central Los Angeles to feel the presence of the entertainment industry, yet far enough that everyday life was not shaped by it. Within that seemingly stable structure, an event occurred that was rarely mentioned in the media. Her older sister died in a car accident at the age of 21. There were no long accounts, no recollections repeated before the public. And the event exists as a gap in her biography, real but not interpreted. In 1966, at just 16 years old, a moment happened with almost no preparation. Smithers appeared on the cover of Newsweek on March 21st, a simple image. A teenage girl sitting on the back of a motorcycle, not carrying the appearance of someone entering the entertainment industry. Yet that very image changed the direction of her life. Invitations from Hollywood began to appear, not from a long pursuit, but from the fact that she had been seen. Those invitations from Hollywood did not take her straight onto film sets immediately. An intermediate space opened up, where image began to turn into action. Smithers joined the band Hot Cup of Friends in the early 1970s, taking the role of lead singer in a completely different setting. No longer a static image on a magazine cover, but a direct presence before an audience, where voice and performance rhythm replaced the gaze. The band included Christopher Mancini, the son of Henry Mancini, a name already firmly established in the music and film industry. That connection did not create an immediate breakthrough, but it placed her in an environment where performance was no longer a potential ability, but a condition to be met. To stand on stage, keep the rhythm, and complete a performance in real time. Here, a shift became more visible than anything that had come before. The image that had once been seen now had to operate on its own. There was no longer the distance of the lens or the selectivity of editing. Each performance unfolded in full, without cuts, without repetition. And within that very space, another capacity began to form. The ability to exist in front of others without needing a fixed frame to hold it. Alongside these movements, she continued along a stable educational path. Smithers attended Taft High School in Woodland Hills, then went on to study at the Chouinard Art Institute, an artistic environment not designed specifically to produce Hollywood stars. This path was not replaced by early opportunities, but existed in parallel, preserving a different rhythm amid the movements that were beginning to take shape. After her appearance on the cover of Newsweek in 1966, Jan Smithers's trajectory began to shift in a direction not entirely of her own choosing. Invitations from Hollywood agents opened up before her, but instead of moving straight into acting, Smithers entered the entertainment industry through another path: modeling. In the late 1960s, and modeling allowed her to exist within the system without having to immediately establish an identity as an actress. By the early 1970s, another direction began to emerge. She joined the band Hot Cup of Friends as a co-lead vocalist, an experience that placed her in a completely different space from fashion. There were no longer static images, but sound, rhythm, and a direct presence before an audience. The band had connections with Christopher Mancini, the son of Henry Mancini, creating an indirect link to the professional music world. However, neither path, modeling nor music, was maintained long enough to become a central axis. They existed in parallel, brushing past each other within the same period, leaving behind separate traces without forming a clear identity. Smithers explored multiple possibilities, moving between professional spaces, but did not attach herself to a single path. Opportunities opened in rapid succession. Photo shoots concluded. Rehearsal rooms lit up. Meetings with agents were inserted between already crowded schedules. Auditions appeared like brief stopping points. She was present in front of the camera on small stages, in casting rooms, each place holding her just long enough before shifting into another movement. These fragmented images accumulated into a continuous presence, yet the outline remained open, unfinished, unlike emotions still in progress without a chosen endpoint. A film set in the morning, the lights still holding the heat from the previous scene, the floor marked with thin strips of tape to fix each actor's position within the frame. Jan Smithers' name sat at the lower part of the casting board, not in a leading position, but enough to be called at the right time, to step into a point already determined in advance. When the camera rolled, every movement had been broken down by angle, each line of dialogue placed into a timing precise to the beat. She stood at that position, delivered her lines, kept the rhythm of the scene from drifting out of structure, then stepped back as the camera shifted elsewhere. There was no extension, no excess beyond the script. Everything ended the moment the scene was completed. Another name was called to replace her position. The same mark on the floor, the same light, the same rhythm repeating. The work continued in that manner, steady enough to avoid interruption, yet each appearance left no trace from the one before. Roles followed one another according to the shooting schedule, but did not accumulate into a trajectory, did not create a position that could be recognized beyond the scene just completed. In 1973, Jan Smithers made her first television appearance in an episode of Love Story, playing Barbara in Beginner's Luck. A guest role, a short in duration, placed precisely within the predetermined structure of a television series operating under a tightly controlled production schedule. On set, everything was prepared before the camera rolled. Scripts divided by scenes, lighting set according to angles, actors' positions marked on the floor with tape. She stepped into that position, performed her part within a calculated time frame with no extension beyond the script, no space to experiment outside the limits of the scene. The segment ended. The camera shifted to another angle. The next scene was set up immediately. The role did not last long enough to become an identifying marker, but it placed her at the center of a specific working process. Every movement had to align with the rhythm of editing. Every line had to fall at the exact moment. The set functioned as a closed system, where the actor's past was not brought in, and the result was measured only by the precise completion of the task at hand. There was no distinction between a newcomer and someone experienced. Only one requirement remained: maintain the rhythm so the scene could be completed and move on to the next. The camera moved closer in 1974. No longer just a fleeting frame as on television. In Where the Lilies Bloom, Jan Smithers appeared as Devola, a character not built on dramatic peaks, but on a presence sustained across scenes. The Appalachian setting moved at a slow pace, wooden houses standing apart, children surviving within a system that seemed almost devoid of adults. The camera did not cut quickly, did not rush transitions. It lingered long enough that the actor could not rely on short-term technique. Each movement had to carry its own weight. This was one of the rare moments in her early career where she held a leading role in a feature film. Not a major commercial project, not accompanied by notable box office success or significant awards, but enough to place her at the center of a complete film, where the entire narrative depended on a steady presence to keep its structure from breaking. In an industry where many actors spend years reaching that point, having a leading role come early created a clear possibility. The path could expand toward cinema if sustained with the right momentum. That same year, when the north wind blows brought her back to set, but the operating rhythm shifted. The role no longer held the center. Screen time was divided. The focus moved toward the film's overall structure. What had just been achieved did not have time to extend into a trajectory, and there was no pause to transform a leading role into a stable position within the system. The project ended, and her name on the casting board was replaced by another. That rhythm repeated in the following years. Television returned as a continuous stream, each project a brief stop. In 1976, she appeared in Starsky and Hutch. One episode, one character, one shooting day, broken into multiple angles, multiple repetitions of the same scene. The pace of production did not allow a role to last long enough to form a distinct impression. Everything was completed on schedule, according to technical standards, then moved immediately to the next project once the episode was locked. During this period, a reality began to emerge. She had reached the central position of a feature film very early, yet no subsequent project was large enough to sustain that position. Work was not lacking. The shooting schedule was not interrupted, but each role existed as an isolated unit, not connected into a line. And Hollywood operated on repetition, the need for one leading role to be followed by another, for one mark to be reinforced by the next. When that chain did not form, a position within the system could not be established in time. There was no collapse, no disruptive event that broke the continuity, only a trajectory that was never extended. What appeared in 1974 showed a possibility, but the years that followed did not hold that possibility long enough to turn it into a clear direction. And within the continuous motion of film sets, she kept working, kept appearing. Yet her place was still not named in the way this industry typically demands. A gap large enough opened after a sequence of fragmented work, but this time it did not close as quickly as the previous projects. In 1978, Jan Smithers entered WKRP in Cincinnati as Bailey Quarters, a role not designed to make an immediate impression, but one that was sustained across 86 episodes, spanning 4 broadcast seasons. A fixed set, a newsroom space repeated each week, a production schedule locked to the broadcast cycle, where each episode had to be completed on time to air. Within that rhythm, a character did not need to explode to exist, only to hold her position within a system operating continuously. Within the same program, not every role was created to become the center. Some roles exist to hold the rhythm, to connect, to keep the entire structure from drifting off its trajectory. And those very roles, that even when present long enough, are rarely the ones the system pushes forward as representative faces. Bailey did not take over the frame. She stood slightly offset from the noise of the newsroom, observing more than intervening, placing her lines precisely to maintain the rhythm of the entire scene. In a sitcom driven by speed, with rapid dialogue and reactions timed to the beat of laughter, that mode of existence created a clear counterbalance. Small details, a gaze held a beat longer, a position that did not break the composition, a way of keeping distance from the climax, did not produce immediate effect, but they did not disappear from episode to episode. They repeated, accumulated, became part of the structure, allowing the character to be recognized without needing to change form. That presence moved through the national broadcast system at a steady pace. One episode per week, each season following the last. At her image appearing in the same time slot, repeated long enough to become part of the audience's habit. There was no singular moment to mark it, but there was a durable form of recognition, remembered as an image of an intelligent, composed woman existing through control rather than intensity. During the same period, WKRP in Cincinnati itself appeared in major industry award categories with standout performances clearly recognized. Roles that operated through restraint like Bailey didn't fall into the area that drew attention, where explosive moments and strong contrasts are more readily seen and named. The broadcast rhythm on screen maintained its stability, but the system behind it did not. The series was repeatedly shifted across time slots during its run, causing the live audience to lose continuity between seasons. Each shift pulled a portion of viewers away from their familiar appointment, not because the content changed, but because the viewing rhythm was disrupted. In an industry where position is determined by the ability to retain viewers within a broadcast cycle, that misalignment did not only affect the program, but also weakened the momentum behind the faces associated with it. At the same time, American television operated under a different logic. The images most easily pushed forward were those instantly recognizable. Characters who generated strong laughter, quick reactions, striking physical presence, dominating the rhythm of a scene, and capable of being separated from context for promotion. Bailey followed a different path. The character was not built to create visual impact, not written to dominate the spotlight in each scene, but to exist within the structural background, where everything is held steady so other lines can function. Within the same space of WKRP in Cincinnati, positions were not distributed evenly. Gary Sandy carried the narrative axis, where every movement had to pass through to maintain the show's logic. Howard Hesseman created deviation, pulling the rhythm away from normality to generate comedic peaks. Lonnie Anderson carried another line, an image that could be separated from context, easily recognizable, easily used by the promotional system. Jan Smithers Bailey did not sit at any of those extremes. The character did not lead the structure, did not create explosive moments, nor carry an image that could stand alone as the face of the show. She existed in the balancing layer, where small details were placed precisely so that other lines would not drift out of rhythm. When dialogue accelerated, she held the silence. When energy was directed toward another character, she did not step in to reclaim the frame. That presence did not alter the structure but kept it from breaking. This very position created a particular contradiction. Within the program itself, her character was indispensable. Without it, the system would lose balance. But within the external system, where value is measured by the ability to be extracted into an independent image, and that position did not generate the same force. The very qualities that allowed Bailey to endure, restraint, stability, the ability to hold rhythm, were not the qualities easily converted into a star trajectory. This difference became clearer when placed alongside parallel paths of development. Some faces within the same cast expanded into film or other projects, where their images could be reused within new structures. Roles built on intensity or strong visual identity were easier to transfer into other environments. Meanwhile, the image she carried was tightly bound to the structure of the show itself, effective within it, but difficult to extract while retaining the same force. Here, the limitation did not appear as a direct barrier, but as an implicit condition. She did not lack screen time, did not lack recognition, did not lack continuous presence on television. But that form of presence was not designed to move. It functioned best within a stable system, where other elements coexisted to support it. Once outside that system, the conditions that created its original effectiveness no longer accompanied it, and the force of the image shifted accordingly. Within that very difference, a state of being stuck began to form, not from a lack of opportunity, but from the mismatch between what she brought and the way the system chose to expand a face beyond its initial scope. That construction produced a clear result on screen. The character was liked, trusted, remembered through repeated airings. But within Hollywood's production system, stability does not automatically translate into a next step. No larger role line was established from that image. No film project followed to expand her position. 86 episodes created a level of recognition across the United States, but also held that image within the same boundary, where a role reached a high degree of familiarity, yet did not transform into a star trajectory. In the years from 1980 to 1982, while WKRP in Cincinnati was still airing regularly, the rhythm of the entire cast began to split into different directions. On the same set, with the same scripts, but outside the frame, the trajectories were no longer the same. Some faces expanded into film, appearing in larger projects, their images pushed forward through clearly defined industry strategies. Their names did not stop at sitcoms, but began to move across multiple spaces, with greater intensity and higher frequency. During that same period, Jan Smithers maintained the rhythm that had already been established. She was still present on set, still completing each scene according to the structure of the series, still sustaining the stability that had shaped Bailey Quarters. The role developed in length, across many episodes, and many seasons, but did not expand beyond its existing scope. The working rhythm remained steady, but the trajectory did not change. This difference did not lie in a single specific decision, but in the way the work continued afterward. When the sitcom ended, the workload did not disappear, but shifted into another form, the most common form of American television at the time: guest appearances. There were no long-term contracts, no control over a character's direction, no role line long enough to accumulate over time. Each role was written within the limits of a single episode, completed within a closed production cycle, then stopped the moment the story ended. On the sets of episodic television series, her characters were placed into a space already completed in advance, stepping through a hallway door, stopping exactly at a marked position on the floor, delivering their lines among main character arcs already operating within an established rhythm. Lighting was preset according to camera angles, dialogue broken down to fit broadcast time, and every movement kept within the limits of a closed structure. When the scene ended, the character no longer appeared in the timeline of the next episode. Costumes were removed, scripts folded away, and the entire existence of the role stopped exactly at the point predetermined. The following week, in that same time slot, another story was built within the same space under the same lighting system, but with different names stepping into the positions just vacated. The repetition did not lie in content, but in structure, where each role began from zero, completed itself within a closed loop, then disappeared without leaving a continuation. Alongside television, film appeared in Jan Smithers' trajectory as isolated points. not forming a continuous line of development. In 1978, our winning season placed her in a completely different environment from the sitcom set. A school sports setting, outdoor filming, a rhythm tied to collective movement rather than fast-paced studio dialogue. The filming process did not operate on a weekly cycle, but on a schedule that grouped scenes together, dependent on location, weather, and coordination across the production. Her role existed within that structure as part of a larger narrative, with a clear beginning and end within the film's runtime, but was not designed to extend beyond that film itself. When production was completed, the character's arc closed with it, and without leading into a chain of similar roles or establishing a continuing path in film. In the years that followed, film did not disappear entirely, but it also did not become a stable axis of development. By 1987, Mr. Nice Guy was produced on a different scale, smaller with a shorter shooting schedule, the entire process contained within the scope of an independent project. Scenes were completed day by day, the crew operated with limited resources, and there was no distribution strategy strong enough to create wide-reaching impact. Her role, like the film itself, existed fully within that space, a complete project, but one that did not open into a continuing line after it closed. Between these 2 points, film did not create a trajectory, but appeared only in isolated instances. Each film had its own complete structure, but they did not connect to form a longer path. These appearances did not accumulate into a role line, did not lead to a new form of recognition beyond television, and did not establish a system of work stable enough to replace the rhythm she had previously maintained. Throughout this entire period, the work did not stop, but the way it existed changed. From a role sustained over many years within a single system, to short, separate appearances that did not connect. From a character that could accumulate over time, to characters created to be completed within a closed cycle. The working rhythm remained steady, but everything began to turn in a loop, where each role had a clear beginning and end, and yet left no path forward. In 1987, Mr. Nice Guy marked Jan Smithers' final appearance on screen, a project completed through a familiar process. Scenes wrapped, the crew dispersed, the work schedule ended at a point already predetermined. There was no sign of a new transition, no follow-up project scheduled immediately afterward. After this film, she did not return to acting. There was no official announcement, no confirmed moment marking a definitive retirement, no publicly stated plan for a comeback. Her name stopped appearing on casting boards, no longer present in new production schedules. At this point, a question begins to emerge, not asked at the time, but becoming clearer in retrospect across the entire trajectory. Did this disappearance come from a lack of opportunities, or from a decision to leave the system before it closed in on her? There is no direct evidence to confirm either. But when this ending is placed alongside what came before, a role that reached strong recognition but did not expand into something larger, a sequence of projects that did not form a new trajectory, a working rhythm gradually moving away from the center of the industry. The stopping point is no longer just an ending. It resembles a line extended until it no longer had the force to continue, where the boundary between no longer having opportunities and no longer having the need to continue is no longer clearly separated. And within that ambiguity, the decision to leave the screen does not appear as a single act, but as the result of a process already unfolding, long enough that when it happened, it required no explanation. After leaving the familiar working rhythm of the industry, she did not remain in the spaces that had once defined her career. She moved to Halifax for a period, a city outside the center of the North American entertainment industry, where there were no dense shooting schedules, no casting systems operating on cycles, no pressure to maintain continuous public presence. The change did not unfold as a declaration, but as a shift in space, From sets built with fixed lighting and production rhythms, to a life where time was no longer divided by episodes or broadcast slots. The movements once tied to work stopped at that geographic boundary. This distance was not only geographical, it separated her from the very system that had shaped her entire trajectory, where opportunities appeared in cycles, where presence had to be maintained in order to continue existing. Once outside that system, not returning no longer required confirmation, but became the natural state of a trajectory that had changed direction. In an environment where careers are often marked by comebacks, official announcements, or reappearances to reposition an image, this kind of ending followed a different rhythm. A role ended, a film closed, and her presence on screen stopped there, in the same way many of her previous roles had ended, except this time there was no next scene waiting. In 2014, Jan Smithers reappeared at a WKRP in Cincinnati reunion at the Paley Center for Media. There was no set, no script, no cameras operating under the familiar rhythm of production. The space shifted to an auditorium, where the cast sat together, recalling moments that had been recorded decades earlier. That appearance did not carry a new role, was not tied to a future project, did not open into another work schedule. She was present as part of a collective memory, where the character Bailey was recalled as an image already complete, preserved in the state it had once existed on screen. Jan Smithers' private life did not unfold in the way the public often sees with familiar television faces. It existed alongside the spotlight, parallel to her work, but did not merge with it. Relationships appeared in stretches of time, not tied to shooting schedules, not placed within broadcast hours, leaving no clear trace on the surface of the media. Her first marriage to Kip Whitman began in the early 1970s, when everything in her career was still searching for form. And they met in a space where Hollywood had not yet become the center of life. Meetings without the presence of lights, conversations not tied to scripts. The relationship passed quickly, the way many things in that period unfolded. Before it could stabilize, it closed. There were no details repeated over time, no stories extended within public memory. It existed as something that had happened, but was not retold. Years later, when her work had moved through its most stable phase with WKRP in Cincinnati, she met James Brolin under different circumstances, when both had already established clearer positions within the industry. This time, the relationship did not begin from a blank space, but from two trajectories already formed. They entered a shared life that carried a familiar Hollywood shape, appearing together before the public, sharing a domestic space, moving through years in which work and personal life intertwined. The birth of Molly Elizabeth created a concrete anchor, no longer a sequence of shooting schedules, but days divided by a different rhythm, the time of family, of raising a child, of spaces without cameras. A part of life moved away from the set, into homes, into mornings without production schedules, and into stretches of time that did not need to be recorded. But within that same period, another shift began to unfold in parallel, quiet yet clear when viewed over time. Her working rhythm no longer maintained the same density. Projects did not continue with the same intensity. Her presence on screen gradually thinned year by year. Meanwhile, Brolin continued moving within the system. New projects, new schedules, a public presence still maintained. The two trajectories did not separate immediately, but they no longer aligned. This misalignment did not create a point of collision that could be clearly named. It stretched out, accumulated, until the distance became more evident than any explanation. When the marriage ended in 1995, it was not only the conclusion of a relationship, but also aligned along the same axis as the process her career had already undergone. a sequence of gradual shifts, not explosive, but enough to alter the entire trajectory. A void had appeared very early, even before things could form a stable order. It did not pass through the media, was not recalled in public narratives, had no repeated timestamp to mark it. It remained in the background of life, unchanged in shape, unfilled, existing in a way that did not require naming. There were no detailed accounts, no retrospective explanations offered. What remained was not an event, but the sense of something that had left the original structure and did not return. And from that point forward, every movement, whether on screen or outside it, carried with it a pre-existing absence, existing in parallel without needing to be spoken of. As a result, her entire private life did not form emotional peaks in the way often seen. There were no recorded collapses, no conflicts pushed to the surface, no moments amplified into narrative. Relationships began, existed, and ended within closed boundaries. But when placed alongside her professional trajectory, one thing becomes clearer. Her withdrawal from the spotlight did not occur separately from her personal life, but alongside it, like two parallel movements, not needing to meet at a single point, yet leading to the same outcome. In the years after leaving the industry's working rhythm, Jan Smithers did not maintain a regular public presence. There were no filming schedules, no participation in television or film projects, no periodic appearances at entertainment events. Her career was not extended through a new role, nor redirected into producing or teaching. It stopped as something completed without extending into another structure. Life shifted into spaces removed from the production system. She lived for a time in Halifax, Nova Scotia, before returning to California. These choices didn't come with any attempt to rebuild a public image, nor were they tied to any media strategy. Rare appearances, such as the WKRP in Cincinnati reunion at the Paley Center for Media in 2014, remained connected only to the past, not opening into new activity. Her personal life was kept within private boundaries. After her marriage to James Brolin ended, there was no information about returning to public relationships or reappearing in the media. The raising of her daughter, Molly Elizabeth, took place outside the public gaze, not tied to entertainment imagery or stories repeatedly told. At present, she does not appear on mass media platforms, does not participate in brand revival projects, and does not make guest appearances like many actors of her generation. Her life moves according to a different rhythm. No scripts, no broadcast schedules, no requirement to maintain a public presence. What remains is not found in current activity, but in the images that were recorded before, preserved in their original form over time, unchanged, not repeated within a new context. And an image held long enough within a single structure will gradually separate from the very context that created it. Without needing to occupy the center, without pushing emotion to its peak, it continues to exist fully through each repetition, enough to become a reference point without needing to be named. In a space that constantly leans toward noise, that presence stands slightly off the main axis, holding rhythm through control, through distance, by not entering the climax yet never leaving the frame. Small details, a glance, a position, the way a line is delivered, do not create immediate impact, but they do not disappear over time. They accumulate across repeated broadcasts long enough to shape a different form of existence, where composure is not overshadowed by prominence. Without needing shock, without constantly changing form, that image is retained in memory in its own way, independent of easily recognizable markers. Its influence does not lie in being repeated exactly, but in its ability to open another option for how a character can exist on screen. A presence that does not need to be elevated, does not need emphasis, yet remains clear enough not to fade away. And within that way of existing, the image is preserved. not because it is the most striking, but because it does not change while everything around it continuously shifts. A career can be seen most clearly through what has been achieved, but there are also trajectories shaped by what did not happen, transitions that were not made, paths that were not opened, appearances that were not repeated. Jan Smithers's life was not built through consecutive peaks, but through a line extended long enough to leave an impression, then stopping without requiring a named conclusion. There is no singular moment to mark the change, no event large enough to explain the entire trajectory. What remains is a sequence of movements already completed, holding their shape over time. And there, a question still remains. When a path is not continued, does it come from reaching its limit or from a decision to leave before that limit appears?